To neatly tie up dozens of hours of plot and characters while keeping your conclusion both exciting but also, well, concluding is no easy task, but it's one that every Persona game has to attempt to do. Some succeed, really adding the perfect final touches to complete the experience, and others make you feel like you could have had a better ending watching the Nakajima Cube for 80 hours. So let's break it down. Today we're ranking the Persona endings from worst to best, obviously full-blown spoilers. If you have any interest in playing any of the mainline games, Persona 1 through 5, then please do not let my stupid ass ruin these for you. While I'll only be diving into the canon or true endings and none of the bad ones, I will be talking about the new endings featured in re-releases like with Royal or Portable, and as for what the ending qualifies, basically the scenes in between and after the final boss. Per usual, this is all my opinion, storytelling is subjective, and just because I did or did not like something shouldn't affect how you feel. I'm not a connoisseur, dude, I play this shit. Persona 5 is not only the reason for today's video with its multi-plat release and all this month, it's also in my opinion the very best the series has to offer. It's loaded with engaging characters, genre-bending gameplay, and one of the most applicable narratives. It does so much right, so what the fuck was this ending? What makes Persona 5 so good is that it capitalizes on the best elements from each era of Persona to make it a blended experience. Stuff like negotiation, guns, and demon enemies from Persona 1 and 2, but also the social aspects from 3 and 4 all fusing together to make a bomb-ass Persona Margarita. But when it comes to the ending, they learned nothing. After defeating the final boss, it drags out far too long, and then it's just your usual riding off into the sunset ending. I find it puzzling that after all the ending twists from 2 and 3, after the secret dungeon from 4, you get to the ending of this game and they almost allude that there's about to be more happening, and then the calendar just starts skipping a bunch of days and it's over. I've mentioned this before, but how do you create what is going to be the next Persona game, presumably the best, and then just intentionally leave this section blank 5 years after Golden, huh, Atlus? They had it planned from the beginning. In my own admission of bias, I think a lot of my dislike for this ending is rooted in comparison, yet by itself, it still sucks. Because everything significant that happens is reversed by the time the credits roll. They start off with an incarceration plot, but then it's immediately undone by a scene where your confidence all help you, definitely not like we just witnessed the same thing during the final boss. And they kill off Morgana before revealing it to be a fake out, like with Ryuji, like with Joker, like with Akechi. Are we talking about Royal now? Persona 5 Royal does the ending slightly worse for 2 reasons. One, the main cast is shoved aside in favor of the more relevant characters to this game who also have almost 0 screen time. No one seems to care about Joker leaving and they're just like, see ya, bitch. And 2, it kind of feels like Atlus put this post-credit scene here as fan service, like they wanted people to keep thinking about and discussing theories over the game, and they have a very rough record in the main line of going back on killing characters. Just let them die, my dude. Most people prefer Vanilla's ending of the party having a final ride together, but I do like that Royal actually offers a more realistic moment of disconnect, which is something we will talk about later. Pop quiz! Can you name the Persona game that has the Joker, the blonde girl, the lawful sibling, and... oh dear. Persona 5 and Persona 2 Innocent Sin have a few similarities, and a disappointing ending is one of them. See, with this game, the plot starts to get so absurd that I honestly had no idea what to expect from the ending. If it ended happy with everyone alive and at peace, then cool. If it ended with everyone dying, I would also totally understand. But somehow what we ended up getting felt way worse than either of those, and even more unusual, it made me furious. If we're talking not so innocent sins, there is none greater than the reset button trope. You never, ever, ever want to do this in your plot, because then what the fuck was the point? All of that grinding, all of those character arcs, just so you can end up on the same screen as the beginning? But let's break it down. After the final battle with Nyarth, how about we just call him N? Actually, how about we don't do that at all? After the final battle with Nyarli, Maya appears and stabs Maya with the same spear that was used to kill some other guy. She dies with a speech, Nyarli laughs in their faces, and then proceeds to have the world stop rotating, which does some funny physics. With the Earth now destroyed outside Sumeru City and Maya dead, Philemon approaches the party and says there's still one final way we can undo all of this. By literally undoing all of this, going back in time, preventing the kids from ever meeting up at the shrine, and obviously taking all of their memories with it. They will never know each other, and if they do, not as the friends they are now, And they do it, one by one vanishing, hoping that they'll somehow retain their memories because of how strong their friendship is. But in the final scene, it appears that is not the case, as they all meet up and nobody seems to remember each other, except, well, that's the ending anyway. In this way, Persona 2 isn't the conventional reset, as the world created is much more stable. Everyone is living better lives, with the basic trade-off being the party. We should be happy for them. But to the player who just spent the last 60 hours of their life stringing those extinct relationships, it's depressing as hell. I'd say it's equally as sad as another big certain Persona ending we'll talk about in a bit, but this one feels less fulfilling. Not even because it insults your time and journey into the game, but because the reset button is the cowardly way out of a plot. Any narrative can be reset to moments before the Big Bang kicks everything into sequence, but Persona 2 is all about fate, consequences, cause and effect, sin and punishment. No, not that. It's about characters having to navigate the effects of their own actions all the way down to the rumors they spread, taking responsibility for the world they're shaping. Everyone in the party, especially by endgame, should know this well, so for their ultimate consequence to be a do-over where they forget everything, including that as a piece of their character growth, it's just so wasteful. The best part of this ending is when you get to punch Philemon in the face because fuck you, you wasted everyone's time. Now, as much as I hate Innocent Sin's ending, it's also not really an ending, as while Atlus was developing this game, they were writing the sequel, Eternal Punishment. Maybe because they knew people were going to react like how I did. And I gotta say, Eternal Punishment? Well, first, Persona 1. Persona 1 has the most basic and simple ending in the series, but it gets to because it's Persona 1. After the final boss, Pandora is defeated and Maki's shadow sends everyone back to reality, then plants a wet one on you. Philemon gives a speech that makes him sound like a guest speaker at a graduation, and then the actual graduation, you get it. I like this ending because it's one of the few with a canon romance that both characters live to see, at least according to the epilogue. It's not riddled with twists like every single game that came after it, it's just a very straightforward, you beat the boss, here's your reward, Philemon's face. The Snow Queen quest is no different. Everyone goes on to live successful lives before half of them have to show back up and wreck shit in Persona 2. I wish I could say more about these endings, but this is pretty much it. It's not like they changed the ending in the PSP release, but you know what they did change? What if you hated Persona 2 Innocent Sin's ending? To the point where you went back to that same group of Megaten fans who worship this game, only so you could tell them off over the ending. Then they all give the same piece of advice. Play Eternal Punishment. So you go out and buy the game, which is high-key in retrospect one of the best decisions you've ever made, and then you beat it, and you think, oh, you're telling me I was playing as a little bitch that whole game.
I don't want to forget what happened. How can I forget? Guys, don't go. Don't leave me alone. Please, no. Please, no. No!
It was hard for me to want to play Eternal Punishment after Innocent Sin burned me so bad, but I'm very glad that I did because it drastically improved my outlook on the ending of that game. Basically, in those last few moments, Tatsuya selfishly runs away from the new timeline given to them, not wanting to forget his friends and memories. The result is that he's now inhabiting the mind of himself meant to forget while everyone else successfully has. But this gives Nyarly the ability to strike again in the new timeline, and he does. The game is basically a rehash of characters, assets, dungeons, even cutscenes, like a remixed Persona 2, but from the side of Maya and gang. The whole time, Tetsuya, who remembers and is basically the cause of all of it, is working hard to prevent Nyarly from winning and Maya from finding out. There's a real sweet moment towards the end when Maya finally remembers Tetsuya, and just for a little bit in the game, it's a really big moment of payoff because it cancels Innocent Sin's ending for two characters, but obviously, that's not supposed to happen. So by the time we get to the end, Nyarly is defeated for realsies, Tatsuya actually making the strike and not missing like the first time, probably because he missed the first time. But Tatsuya still has to serve his sentence, which Maya, now with feelings, does not want him to do, so he does what every boy should do. Yeah, well, it wouldn't be a Persona 2 ending if Tatsuya wasn't hitting someone. In the final scene, Maya once again finds Tatsuya at a crosswalk, hesitates, but decides to finally let go so he can live his life, just like he did. It's a sad romantic downfall. These two characters both had to give up their whole world and each other to create a prospering one. And ironically, the one who suffers the eternal punishment is not the one who committed the innocent sin. Maya, who has to deal with the pain of remembering, and in a way, traded places with Tatsuya. If you look at both of these games on their own, the endings leave a lot to be desired, one game lacking context and the other throwing it away. But as the Persona 2 duology, the complete metaphor for sin and punishment is a dignified masterpiece. Which is why the real antagonist is Atlus USA. Because 2 separate times in 11 years did they only give us one side of the story. But oh, here's Persona 5 for the 3rd time in 5 years. Nothing against Persona 5, I'm really happy everyone is getting to experience it on every console. Enjoy, folks. Persona 3. Thematically the darkest in the series, despite being the first game to forfeit its SMT roots in favor of the all-new simulation elements.
I've been waiting.
You see, there's this recurring theme in every Persona game that humans deep down want the world to end, and in no Persona environment is that more apparent than the thirds, the locals fraught with something called apathy syndrome. Basically a soulless state where they have no desire or will or action. They are technically alive, but they may as well be dead, and that's basically Persona 3. Death, the inevitable kind. No part of this game shies away from it. The coffins, the evokers, Thanatos, the intro, it's everywhere. So when you make the decision in December to fight against the end of the world, also by not killing Ryoji, you know there's something coming. The game isn't just going to flip its values out of nowhere, so what's the true meaning behind all this death? Let's recap. In the final battle, Nyx is too powerful and commences the end of the world by opening up the moon, and it's Semeno Sagiri, everyone clap. As terror ensues, Minato is transported to the Velvet Room where all of your rank 10s give you encouragement and birth a new arcana, the universe. This scene is the literal power of friendship, but I want you to remember that Persona 3 was the first game to have social links, and doing this was a really cool way of showing the concept of strength in numbers. Igor then tells the protagonist to accept his destiny and that the Velvet Room will soon be arriving at its destination, saying Minato was a great guest. Back in the battle, the protagonist rises up to face Nyx, or Death, one-on-one, and uses a move called the Great Seal, which costs all of his HP, and since when MC dies, the game is over. But the most important thing to take from this scene was that he did it. He beat Death. What follows is a voice, Ryoji's, telling the rest of the team that Minato has found the answer to life's greatest question, aka he has found the meaning behind it in the form of his bonds, with the very last thing he does being make it to graduation so he can fulfill the wish of his friends, dying just after. And this is when the transformation of Persona 3's message hit me. It's not about what it means to die, it's about what it means to live. Something several of the characters find out over the course of the game, topped by Aigis in the finale. And although usually saddened by whatever death lurks around them, they all accept it and continue to live life the best they can. Just think about it. When you remember the bulk of Persona 3, you will absolutely remember the last couple hours of the game and what that atmosphere felt like. But those dozens of hours spent with friends, fighting battles, overcoming hardship, these are the real gems that bring people to this series. I went the whole segment without saying it, but I'm gonna do it. It's not about the destination, okay. But rather than quickly write over the protagonist's death by, I don't know, resetting the timeline, the characters are forced to just deal with it, reacting, grieving, and growing to the loss of their beloved teammate. Or so it would be nice to think, because, ooh, balls. The answer is closure that we didn't need. It is the biggest reason why Atlus should not materialize their afterthoughts, because it's stupid fan service. I don't even want to legitimize it by including it here. It basically thwarts the ending of Persona 3, so I'm just going to say the team fight is the dumbest thing in Persona 3. You start to think, oh, they're struggling with their grief so much it's driving them to do unreasonable things, but then nope. Everything is better, everything is hopeful. He's a door, but now he's a window. Shut the fuck up, Atlus. And as far as Portable goes, not only does it tone down the severity and influence of the original cutscenes, choosing who you want to witness your death is just really fucking weird. We deserve FES, come on, man. Our conclusion of today's list is Persona 4, often called the happiest Persona, which I'm not sure I agree with. Persona 1 and 2 share a lot of SMT identity, and Persona 3 was very dark. I think by contrast, Persona 4 is happier, but to me it always just felt like a normal toned Persona entry, just not stuck in so much gloom. Undeniably, the pressure is dialed back. We aren't bombarded with the end of the world level catastrophe, at least not from the get-go. It's just a small town's murder mystery. So most of this game, you are given plenty of time to focus on the characters, which is probably why I fell so hard for all of them. Take it from someone who grew up in a small town. Your friends are everything. They are your social health, your entertainment, and eventually they are the only reason you would ever consider sticking around in a place with nothing. Atlus made damn sure to capture this. Because Persona 4 has so much less danger and urgency, the emphasis is put less on survival and more on just goofing off with your pals, living, laughing, and loving. At no point does it feel like a group foremost united with a common goal of saving the world. These are just friends enjoying their lives side by side. But that's not to say that Persona 4 isn't free of dark moments. They will definitely come, and when they do, you will feel those friendships evolve into family. With all the reactive personalities constantly growing around one another in the party, the dynamic as a result so unique, I can't say any other games have come close to what it feels like. But it's not just the main party, it's the entire cast. Once again, not just the social links, the entire cast that fantastically immerses you into such a position. That's why the ending was some of the most genuine emotion I've ever felt from a video game. First and foremost, super satisfying to have a bonus dungeon if you answered things correctly. How the last day presents to you that you're not done is really cool, and I will always hold it against 5 for not trying to go above and beyond like this. But second, by the time the game is over, you are so well connected with this group of characters that the ending doesn't even need to be anything fancy. You'll feel its weight just from existing, and that's pretty much what it is. Everyone lines up to see you off in what I call the most basic of farewells, and yet for us the player, it is the hardest one. When the characters you've just spent 80 hours with start running after the train to say goodbye to the protagonist, they're not just seeing him off, but you. And as the title screen music starts to play, you feel yourself also reverting back to before you started this incredible adventure, going home. It's a cool way to withdraw the immersion because this was it right here. This was the last time you were going to see all these friends you had made until 4 years later, this, okay, whatever. But the emotion was of pure social separation. You weren't sad for the protagonist saying goodbye. You were sad as him. You were you. In fact, Persona 4 had an ending so good that Golden didn't even bother changing it. What they did do was add an epilogue, which I think is kind of cool, if not filled with some moments and redesigns that only seem to exist for flair.